The Girl at the Well: How God Answered a Prayer. A Bible story for children and families based on Genesis 24. Have you ever had to find something really important, something you absolutely could not get wrong? Maybe it felt a little scary. Maybe you didn't know where to begin. Well, that's exactly how Abraham's servant felt one afternoon, a long, long time ago, as he stood at the edge of a dusty well with 10 camels behind him and a prayer on his lips. Let's go back and hear the whole story from the beginning. A father's faithful request. Abraham was old now. His hair was silver, his steps were slower, and his days of great journeys were mostly behind him. But there was one thing still weighing on his heart. One thing he needed to take care of before his time was done. His son Isaac needed a wife. This wasn't just any errand. In those days, a marriage was a sacred covenant, a bond that could shape a family for generations. Abraham wanted Isaac to marry someone who shared their faith, someone from his own homeland and people, not from the land of Canaan where they were living. So Abraham called his most trusted servant to his side. This man had served Abraham for many years. He knew the household. He understood what mattered most to his master. And now Abraham looked him in the eyes and gave him the most important mission of his life. "I need you to travel to the land where I was born," Abraham said, "and find a wife there for my son Isaac. Don't take a female from here. Go back to my homeland, to my own family." The servant took a deep breath. "But what if the lady is not willing to come back with me to this land? Should I take Isaac there to find her?" Abraham shook his head gently. "No, the Lord God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's house and my homeland, who spoke to me and promised this land to my descendants, He will send His angel before you. He will make your journey successful. Trust Him." That settled it. The servant made his promise, and then he got to work. 10 camels and a long road. Now, camels might seem like an unusual part of a love story, but out here in the ancient world, a camel wasn't just an animal. It was your truck, your water tank, and your storage container all in one. These remarkable creatures were built for the desert. They could carry heavy loads for miles without breaking down. They could go for days without a drink. They were patient, strong, and reliable. The servant loaded up 10 of them. 10. That tells you something about the scale of this mission. He packed gifts, silver, gold, fine clothing, and set off across the long, dry miles toward the city of Nahor, deep in the region of Mesopotamia. It was a journey of many days. The sun blazed overhead. The dust kicked up under the camel's heavy feet. But the servant kept going, trusting that God was going before him, just as Abraham had said. At last, one evening, as the sky shifted from gold to orange to rose, the servant arrived near the edge of a town. Just outside the city gate, there was a well, a deep, stone-ringed well where the local townspeople came to draw water. He made his camels kneel down beside it. The animals grunted and folded their long legs beneath them, grateful for the rest. And then the servant did something before he did anything else. He prayed. A very specific prayer. It wasn't a long, fancy prayer. It was the kind of prayer you pray when you really mean business, honest, direct, and full of faith. "O Lord," he said quietly, "God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today. Show me kindness and keep your promise to Abraham. Here I am, standing at this well, and the young women of the city are coming out to draw water. Let this be the sign. The young woman I speak to, if she gives me a drink and then offers to water my camels too, Let her be the one you have chosen for Isaac." That was the sign. Not just a girl who was polite enough to give a stranger a drink. Anyone might do that. But a girl who would look at 10 thirsty camels, 10 of them, and say without being asked, "I'll water your animals too." That would take something special. That would take a heart that was genuinely kind, genuinely generous. Someone who served others without being told to. The servant had barely finished his prayer when he looked up. And there she was, Rebekah.
"Welcome, my lady."
Her name was Rebekah, though the servant didn't know that yet. She was young, and she moved with the kind of easy energy that comes from a life of honest work. A clay water jar rested on her shoulder, and she walked toward the well with steady, confident steps. The servant watched as she lowered her jar into the cool darkness of the well, filled it, and drew it back up. Then he stepped forward. "Please," he said, "give me a little water from your jar." Rebekah looked at him, a travel-worn stranger with dusty robes and tired eyes. Without hesitation, she lowered her jar and held it out for him. "Drink, sir," she said warmly. He drank, and then Rebekah said something that made his heart nearly stop. "When you've had enough," she said, glancing over at the row of kneeling camels, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they've had all they need." She poured what was left in her jar into the animal trough, then hurried back to the well. Again and again she went, filling the jar, hurrying back, pouring it out. 1 camel, 2 camels, 3. A thirsty camel can drink gallons and gallons of water. 10 camels could empty a well. But Rebekah kept going, back and forth, jar after jar, without a complaint or a second thought. The servant stood there watching, silent and still. He was wondering, was this truly the sign? Could this really be the answer to his prayer? It was. He knew it in his bones. Before she had even finished, he reached into his bag and drew out a gold ring and 2 beautiful golden bracelets. When the camels had finally drunk their fill and Rebekah straightened up, the servant approached her. "Whose daughter are you?" he asked. "Is there room at your father's house for us to spend the night?" She told him her name and her family, and when he heard who her father and grandfather were, the servant bowed his head to the ground right there beside the well. Because the family she named was Abraham's own kin. She was exactly who God had always intended. "Blessed be the Lord," the servant said, his voice full of wonder. "He has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. He led me straight to the home of my master's relatives." God was already working. What's so beautiful about this story is the timing. The servant prayed, and before he had even finished speaking, Rebekah was already on her way. God didn't wait. The answer was already in motion. That's how God so often works. While we're still praying, while we're still figuring out exactly what we need, He's already moving, already preparing, already arranging the details we can't even see yet. The servant didn't deserve any of the credit. He was just faithful. He did his job. He trusted his master. He prayed an honest prayer. And God did everything else. Rebekah, for her part, didn't know any of this yet. She was just being herself, kind-hearted, hard-working, generous. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just doing what came naturally to a girl with a good heart. And that was exactly what made her the right one. The lesson at the well. Here's something worth thinking about. whether you're 5 years old or 50. God uses ordinary things. He used a servant on a long journey. He used 10 thirsty camels. He used a stone well at the edge of a dusty town, and a young woman with a water jar on her shoulder. None of those things are magical. None of them are extraordinary on their own. But God put them all together at exactly the right moment, and they became something wonderful. When you pray, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need all the right words. What the servant showed us is that a simple, sincere, specific prayer, offered in faith, is something God hears and answers. And Rebekah showed us that kindness matters. That who you are when nobody's watching, when you're just going about your ordinary day, says everything about your character. She didn't know she was being observed. She didn't know her life was about to change. She just saw a need and filled it, freely and cheerfully, 10 camels and all. That kind of heart is what God looks for. It was true then, and it's true today. Good night, little ones. So tonight, as you close your eyes, remember the girl at the well and the servant who dared to pray a very specific prayer. Good night, little ones. Remember, God is always listening. Even your smallest, simplest prayer matters to Him. And as you go about your day, at school, at home, wherever you are, let kindness come naturally. You never know when your ordinary act of kindness might be part of something extraordinary that God is doing. He sees your heart. Trust Him with it. Sleep well. He's got tomorrow already taken care of.